pani sa re ma pani sa ga re pa ma ma ga ga re sa ga sa ma pani sa re ma pani sa ga re pa ma ma ga ga re sa ga ma ga re ni pa ma ma pani ga re re ma ga re sa ni sa ma pani sa re ma pani sa ga re pa ma ma ga ga re sa ga ma ga re ni pa ma ma pani ga re re ma ga re sa ni sa ga re ma ga re sa ni pa pani sa ma pani sa ni.
Janani Janmabhumischa Svargadapi Gariyasi. This line states that both the mother and the motherland are even superior to the so-called heaven, Swargam, to me. In our motherland, which is now India, and in history we call it the larger Indian subcontinent or Bharata Varsham, extended till Afghanistan, the entire Pakistan, and Nepal, Bangladesh, and we had very good connections with Sri Lanka and Maldives, and it extended up to Brahmadesham as well, which is Myanmar or Burma today, and some parts of Bhutan and the lower part of Tibet. So it was the larger Indian subcontinent. In that context, we are trying to understand, relish, appreciate, and analyze certain aspects of history coupled with architecture. As of now, I haven't spoken much about architecture because we have dealt with Paleolithic, Mesolithic, Neolithic ages, which are stone ages, the old, the middle, and the new, and we have bundled them into Chalcolithic culture. And we did discuss Indus Valley civilization to some extent, and we have seen the root of Sanatana Dharma, which is Hinduism, from the historian's point of view, from the archaeologist's point of view, very well established in the Indus Valley civilization. We did see some other sites which were discovered in the past in some of the states of India, and we culminated it with Kiradi. Even before the Indus Valley civilization came into picture, I'm not talking about existence, I'm talking about picture, because somebody has to excavate, make a discovery, and understand through scientific methods what the dating of that region could be. Before that, there was a very good discovery made. Of course, it cannot go back till the times of Indus Valley civilization. One such discovery which was made was in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh, and it is very close to Lumbini. Lumbini is the birthplace of Buddha, and this place is very close to Lumbini, but it is in India, in the Indian state of Uttar Pradesh, and this place is called Piprava. And in around 1897 CE, a Britisher called William Pepe, he was a landowner in that area who discovered a large stone coffer with urns containing ashes, jewels, and bone fragments. Even before I could speak something more on this, I will just show you that picture. So you see 5 different objects in front of you in black and white. As I've been telling in this architecture series, kindly forgive me, I had to pick up a lot of images from Google. I try my level best to respect the photographer's right. And so in many of my lectures, or in most of my lectures, I ensure they are only copyright free images. But in this, I had no other go. To explain history, we do need images taken by historians, by a lot of museums. So kindly forgive me, this is for a noble cause of spreading the Indic knowledge. So the picture that you see has 5 urns or vases, whatever you call it. And they were filled with jewels, bone fragments, and ashes. I'm going to show you another place where this was found. It was in a coffer-like place. So now you see a picture. It has been marked very well with redware dishes, damaged and empty. There is a brick chamber, one of the 2 brick chambers. So there were 2 brick chambers found. This is one of the 2 brick chambers. There is a soapstone relic casket. Now, in one of the bases, coming back to it, in one of the bases that was found, a Brahmi script was also found. I'll show you that Brahmi script as well. Can you see that on your screen? So that is a Brahmi script. Of course, I have read in renowned books that this is Brahmi script. I don't know how to read a Brahmi script. Now, there is a the Brahmi script, whatever is written in the Brahmi script, it is a verse. So I'm going to read that verse for you. Sukiti bhatinam sabhaginakanalam ginikanam saputa dalanam iyam salila nidhane bhutasya bhagavate sakhiyanam. So this verse was largely tilting towards Pali and had some words which were unadulterated from Sanskrit. So it was a mix of Pali and Sanskrit, and there have been various interpretations to this verse again. This is something like a verse that we will be reading later in the Pulications time. So here, this verse suggested that it was a relic shrine associated with Buddha's relics. So Gautama Buddha was a very big revolutionary figure at that point in time, and this was found in 1897 CE. Again in 1971-73, the Archaeological Survey of India, ASI, excavated at the Piprava Stupa. So in the same place, they excavated a stupa and found more evidence. So based on all the findings of both the evidences and dating, it is said that this place could be between the 3rd and the 5th century BCE. So before the Indus Valley civilization, this was our earliest find. So Piprava was a great find, because I am talking about Piprava despite giving a lecture on Indus Valley civilization, because we should know about the significance of this place as well. Well, I've spoken about the Stone Ages, and then we went through Indus Valley civilization, but we need to begin with architecture somewhere. So for architecture, I need a basic material. So the material could be simple granite or stone, but where do I find? How do I get that out of that mountain? How do I slice them? How do I polish them? Do I have the tools? So if you can imagine, you don't have tools, and even if you have two different pieces of granite, how am I going to bring them together? That's a bigger question. How am I going to bring them together? So in such cases, we need to understand how architecture has evolved over a period of time in the larger Indian subcontinent. So we will start with rock cut architecture. When I say rock cut architecture, yes, the rock is going to be cut. The rock is incidentally the mountain itself, and it could be cut, and what is getting designed within the mountain is going to be scooped, because you don't have a binding material which is going to bring two different stones together. I need a binding material. I don't have the binding material, so I scoop. So when I say a scoop, I can make it even more easier, which is comprehensible. So it's summertime, I get a basket of ice cream, I have the scooper with me, so I take the scoop out and give it to someone. So when I scoop, so it's a certain portion that I take out, and as I take out, I see the impression of what has been scooped out. So this led to rock cut architecture. The earliest of the caves that we find in such large mountains is from Barabar mountain. So these are caves actually. Now we are going to travel to the, I would say, the north, not too much of northeast. You can call it, yeah, between the east and the northeast. So it's going to be the state of Bihar. In the Jehanabad district, there are twin mountains. There are two mountains. It's called Barabar and Nagarjuni. There are two mountains, and they all have 7 caves. They are totally put together, both the mountains put together, we have 7 caves. And these were constructed under the regime of Mauryas. So Maurya Empire extends between 322 BCE and 185 BCE. So during that period was this hill scooped, the cave scooped. This Mauryan Empire had Pataliputra, which is Patna, the capital of Bihar today, as its capital. And this Mauryan Empire was once the largest political entity that existed. So right from the Himalayas to Bengal to Baluchistan. So I'm talking about the Himalayas. So it largely covers the Ladakh, Kashmir, Himachal Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Uttar Pradesh, Nepal, lower part of Tibet, Sikkim, Bhutan, Arunachal Pradesh, and some parts of West Bengal. So this is the huge stretch of Himalayas. And then you have Bengal. So today's West Bengal, the state in India, and Bangladesh, the country, put together the Bengal region. And it started from there. So you have the entire Bengal region along with the Himalayas, and then the central part of India, the northwest part of India. And then it extended to the entire Pakistan region till one end of current day's Pakistan, which is Baluchistan. So except Kalinga. So this Kalinga is a major point. Kalinga Desham is the current day Odisha. So except Kalinga, because this Kalinga is very important in Ashoka's life. So except Kalinga, this was the Mauryan Empire. Now I'm going to show you how the remains of Pataliputra, the capital of the Mauryan Empire, looks. So this is the picture. I hope you can see this black and white picture. And this shows the remains of Pataliputra. So we don't have very tangible monuments of those times that we can see of today. And I'm going to show you one of the pillar tops. So this is a picture of a pillar top. It's stone, it's granite, and it's polished well. Just look at the amount of engraving that has happened, the amount of carving that has happened. Can you see one layer of flowers which have been put, and then you find screen-like structures, and then you find something like Toranam. Toranam is the hangings, and then you find a beautiful design which is symmetric. If you can see it, you can look at it like a Hamsa as well. There are two Hamsas looking at each other. And look at the rolls on either sides. It looks as if a manuscript has been rolled from top to bottom or bottom to top. Looks exquisite. So these are one or two of the images that I found. Now, I did talk about the Mauryan Empire, and I spoke about the Barabar caves first, right? Now I'm going to take you to Barabar caves. So during the rule of Chandragupta, a renowned king of the Mauryan Empire, between 322 and 297 BCE, who was very popular. So in the time of Chandragupta, probably these caves could have been constructed, because the dating of the caves and the regime of the king match each other. And I spoke about 7 caves, if you remember. So of these 7 caves, so this cave is the most popular of all, which is called the Lomasha Rishi cave. So this Lomasha Rishi, we don't know if he lived there, because from the historian point of view, we are just going to look at the architecture. But we do come across Lomasa as a Rishi in our Purānās. So either the Rishi could have lived in and around the mountain, but if you look at the architecture of the mountain and dating of that mountain, it is roughly during the times of Chandragupta Maurya. So I'm going to take you to the first picture. So you can see the first picture from the side view. I see how the huge hill is. I hope you can see the hill. So when you look at the hill, when you look from very far, this opening is going to look very small. So what is actually this opening? Why is it so special? See, we don't know, I wouldn't say there were no tools then, but we are not sure what kind of tools they had. Were they sophisticated tools? Now, if you can, now I'll show you this picture of a close-up of the opening of this cave. Can you see it? Yeah. Now, when you look at it, look at the number of cuts that have been made. So there is a peripheral cut. Then beyond that, there is an arch-like structure, and it has a kalasham-like thing at the top. It has got something that is like a tiara, and just below it, just look at those protrusions, which to us in a two-dimensional state seems like squares. When you look down under the opening of the cave, they are like strong bars of stone. So what did they represent? See, prior to this, all historians or most historians opine that structures were all largely brick made or wood made. So in wood, it's very easy compared to granite to get this done. So since this was a transition from wood to stone architecture, they wanted to mimic. It would have been super tough for them with no sophistication of instruments, but they have done a marvelous job. It's a very small opening. The facade, if you can look at the facade. Okay, so I've taken you through the arch, and then I've mentioned about the mimicking of the wood to stone. Now you see the other opening. Now you find an arch below that. It looks like beautiful perforations for the air to come. And look at the design. It looks like the scales of a snake. Whoever has done this, the head sculptor, must have been super artistic. So there is an arch which has got perforations, and the next layer is simple, it's plain. And just below that, you can see a beautiful arch again. It's again a panel where you find elephants on either sides. So this elephant holds a huge significance, not because I like it or you may like it, or a lot of them will like Ganesha, the god who removes obstacles. But here, elephant holds a lot of significance in the Buddhism religion. So in Buddhist theology, elephants hold a lot of importance. So in one of Ashoka's relics, which is found in Delhi as well, you have a huge boulder with an elephant in the front. Now, there is another thing to do with elephant. Now, for example, imagine this were to be done in Russia, you wouldn't have elephant in the architecture there, because elephants live largely in the equatorial and the tropical regions. So generally, architecture carries animals or miniatures which are found in that region. So elephant would have been very prominent. You've got in the northeast as well many elephants, and in the south, of course, many elephants. So look at, okay, now below that elephants, there is a lot of depth, and that is where there's another facade, and then there is this opening. So look at the number of layers. So Barabar Hill and its caves, especially this Lomasha Rishi cave, is an exquisite one. Now, I'm going to take you to another picture. This is a design of how the cave is. So this is a depiction by, it could be one of the very good designers of this world who has done this depiction of how the cave looks. So this is how the cave looks. Now, how does the interior of the cave look? So I couldn't find a good picture of the interior of this Lomasha Rishi cave that's even larger. So I found the interiors of another cave in the same set of 7 caves in the Barabar and the Nagarjuni hills. Here there are 2 people who are just standing, I don't know who, but look at the picture. Look at the polish which has been done with them. It's exquisite. Now, these are often referred to as Buddhist caves. So if you go ask someone, they'll tell you they are Buddhist caves. But you'll be surprised to know that they were not Buddhist caves, they were not given to Buddhists. These caves were cut, polished and presented by the king to a group of people called Ajivikas. So Ajivikas belong to the Nastika school. So Asti in Sanskrit means there. Astika is a person who believes that God is there. Na Asti, which is Nasti. So the person who doesn't believe in the existence is called Nastika. So in the Nastika school, yes, Buddhism and Jainism comes, as well as the Ajivikas come. So Ajivikas, they belong to the Nastika school, but were completely different from Buddhists. And its founder was a Goshala, Maskarin Goshala, whom we'll be dealing with him later. He is said to have been the contemporary of Gautama Buddha and Mahābhārata. So Gautama Buddha of Buddhism, Mahābhārata of Jainism, and this Goshala of Ajivikas were prominent gurus. So the followers of Goshala became the Ajivikas, and it is said that this cave was gifted to the Ajivikas. There is an inscription that talks about the caves being given to Ajivikas. Now, I'll show you this beautiful motif panel. Can you see it? You see Buddha sleeping. On the leftmost corner, you have Mahakashyapa. So they call them Kachapa. So there was a king with the same name in the Sri Lankan history as well. Now this Mahakachapa, whom we see in the leftmost corner, and Buddha who's reclining. Between them, you find a person who is not dressed, who doesn't have a cloth on him. So he is an Ajivika. So this Mahakashyapa on the left corner is talking to this Ajivika and learns about parinirvana. So parinirvana, nirvana, these are all stages in Buddhism where they say that you can shed your material body. And so this is parinirvana. That also talks about the access to knowledge. That's cool. So this person is a complete depiction of an Ajivika. Now, the counter question could be, okay, where are Ajivikas now? Yes, we don't know where they are. We don't know whether that school exists. That thought could exist. But Ajivikas as a school and a set of followers, I don't think that's visible anywhere as far as I know. This was the beginning of the rock cut architecture that gave rise to many other types. So I thought with the rock cut architecture that I've shown you, the earliest in India, the Indian subcontinent, which is the Barabar Hills, I thought I'll showcase some other caves as well. Now, inspired by these caves, there was a famous king called Mahameghavahana. So, in his dynasty, there was a king called Kharabela who constructed caves for the Jain monks. So, that's very famous. Now, there is a Hathi Gumpha inscription. So, that's found. It's a very, very important inscription, this Hathi Gumpha inscription. And it is said from this that the king was a follower of Jainism, so he gifted it to Jains. So this inscription that I'm talking about is dated between 2nd century BCE and 1st century CE. So I'm going to show you a picture of what this Hathi Gumpha inscription is. Can you see that? I can't read anything of it. Even if it were legible, I can't read the script. But archaeologists, research scholars have deciphered the script and said that this is a very important inscription which gives the time period of many, many kings. Now, I'm going to show you this picture. If you can see this picture, you can see two levels. You've got a ground floor and a first floor. So just imagine, it's not, I'm sure this is not a skyscraper, but having a level, one level above the other, that's a marvel in rock cut architecture. So what you see are the Udayagiri and Khandagiri caves found in Bhubaneswar. So while in 2010, while I had some, for work, I had to go to Bhubaneswar. After my work was done in the evening, even before the site could close, we had to rush to see the Udayagiri and the Khandagiri caves. So you can see the Udayagiri and the Khandagiri caves. So this is found in Bhubaneswar. This Udayagiri is a very important word because we have got 3 such Udayagiris. We'll be discussing about another Udayagiri later. So this was constructed in the 1st century BCE. So you can see the beauty of this. It looks so exquisite. Okay, now I'll take you to what development we can see in this rock cut architecture, especially in the Udayagiri and the Khandagiri caves. So the first picture, you can see an arch which is very similar to what we found in the Barabar caves. You find damsels, the Apsara trees or the attendants on either sides. Can you see them? And you should see the animals which are supporting the arch, and then you should find the elephants again. And just look at this. So below the Apsara trees on either sides, you find 3 levels, right? They are again mimicking the wood architecture into stone. I'll give you a close-up of this. I'll take you to the next picture. If you can see this picture, yeah. So in this picture, you can find the beautiful sculpture of Apsara trees, and below that you can find the 3 layers. So, and you should see the transversal that cuts across them. So that is also, everything is in granite, stone. So it looks beautiful. Now, I will show you this picture. Yeah, if you can see this picture, you find a horse. So all this indicates that trading had begun and war was also a normal practice, because horse indicates both. It could be used for trading, it could be used in the wars as well. So people were very, very used to wars as well as trading. That's why horse is being used. You could find a person who's taming the horse, and on the left side you find one person punishing the other while his other foot is being served by his attendant. So there is a story there. So sculptures have started giving you stories, because in the Barabar caves you never had a story. So we knew it was given to Ajivikas, but now the panels have started depicting stories. So this is for Udayagiri and Khandagiri caves. So this is under rock cut architecture. I'll show you a few more examples of rock cut architecture. Now, we were discussing about the Mauryan dynasty. With the decline of the Mauryan dynasty, or probably the cause for the decline of the Mauryan dynasty, was a person called Pushyamitra Shunga. And the Shunga, Pushyamitra Shunga, began a dynasty, or after him, the dynasty was called the Shunga dynasty. And since he was averse to Mauryans, since Mauryans were for Buddhism, this person started persecuting the Buddhists. So persecution of Buddhists happened largely under Pushyamitra Shunga. Now, the Buddhists who were persecuted in and around the region of Pataliputra after the Mauryas by the Shungas, they started relocating themselves to the Deccan. So they started coming down from Odisha. Then they reached Telangana, Andhra, Karnataka, and even further south. So they also started touching Maharashtra. Now, this region, what I'm speaking of, Maharashtra, some parts of Odisha, some lower parts of Madhya Pradesh, Goa fully or largely Karnataka, Telangana, and some parts of Andhra. So all this came under the protection of the Andhras. They were popularly known as the Satavahanas. And this relocation or relocating Buddhists happened even till the Western Ghats. Now, when I say Western Ghats, for those of us, I have lived in Bombay for 5.5 years. A lot of you would have visited Bombay. So while we cross Pune and we go to Bombay, in between we come across a place called Lonavala. Lonavala is very famous for chikkis. So Lonavala has this Karla caves, and that's an excellent example for which the work began in the 2nd century BCE, and it's a beautiful grand Chaitya Griha. So Chaitya, Vihara. So this Vihara, Chaitya, these are all words that you generally denote with Buddhism because they wanted a place to stay. Now this Vihara is a place of stay. It could be a grand place of stay. So many opine that Vihara, which had many places of Buddhist interest, we have Bodh Gaya there today, and it was closer to Lumbini and other parts of Buddhist activities in Nepal and Uttar Pradesh. So we had many Buddhists settled there, and they wanted a place of stay. And since many places of Viharas were constructed, the state, many scholars opine, Vihara became Bihara, which is Bihar. So there is a theory which is postulated that way. Now, if we look at the Chaitya Griha, it was built by the Buddhists. Now, I'm going to show you this picture. Just look at this picture. Look at those pillars. They are very beautiful. So, and look at the ceiling. So, everything is a rock cut architecture. We don't know what instruments they had. See, simple sculpting, carving is fine, but it's still not fine with me. I can't do anything of it. But this is absolutely tough to get inside the Western Ghats, use the mountain, scope it completely, look at the depth, look at the pillars. It feels as if the pillars were ready-made and brought here. It's all sculpted within the cave. That's the beauty of it. Now, we have discussed the Barabar cave. Now, this Barabar cave had a replica which was done much later. So that was between the 3rd and the 5th century CE. Now this is going to be the 1st century BCE. So that was also BC. This was also BC, but this is much later. This is in a place called Guntuppalli in Andhra Pradesh in the south of India. How did this replica happen? So imagine there is this Barabar caves which is done. How did that happen? Possibility that due to the Shunga dynasty, the Buddhists started relocating themselves to Deccan under the Satavahanas and came down further south, right? So they could have settled in Andhra, and probably one or more of them who were involved in sculpting of the Barabar caves, their descendants would have come and settled in Andhra Pradesh. That is why we have a replica. You can find a very close, of course, it's not as ornate, as well exquisite as the Barabar caves, but you find a lot of similarity. So this is from Guntuppalli in Andhra Pradesh. So that is one example. Now I'm going to take you back to Maharashtra again, in a place called Nashik. In Rāmāyana, Nashik holds very high importance because it is believed that Shurpanakha came there to assault Sita, and that is where she was humiliated. So it's Nashik Panchavati. Now I'm going to take you to a vihara, which is called the Gautami Putra Vihara in the Pandavleni complex at Nashik in Maharashtra. So this was much later. So we have had Barabar caves, then we had the Udaygiri and the Khandagiri, then again the Guntupalli cave, we had the Karla caves. This one was built much later in the 2nd century CE. So it was roughly 500 to 700 years after the Barabar caves. Again, rock cut architecture, but you should see, if you look at this picture, beautiful pillars. Look at those levels in which the pillar has been carved from the top. So you've got images of animals, and then one layer after the other in the descending order, and then the thick bulbs, and then the columns. So they are beautiful. So all this is done within a cave, and they're all monoliths. So when I say monoliths, it's not as if the pillars were made separately and brought here. It is one mountain which is being used to scoop and get this done. So this was built by a queen who was called Gautami Balasari, who was a mother of the Satavahana king Gautami Putra Shatakarni. So this Shatakarni, Shata is Noor. So Shatakarni is a Sanskrit word. Shata in Tamil, which is one of the very ancient languages, is Noor. Karni is Karna. Nooru Karna. So this person was called Nooru Karna, and Sangam literature has a mention of this Nooru Karna. So this man was very popular, this king was very popular. So this Satavahana king, Gautami Putra Shatakarni's mother, Gautami Balasari, constructed this vihara for the Buddhists to stay, for the Buddhist monks to stay, and it functioned like a very vibrant vihara. So we have seen rock cut architecture, we have seen the amount of detailing that has gone into making of these caves. Now I'm going to take you to the next style of architecture, which is called the stupa style of architecture. Now, researchers, they say that the stupa concept had been borrowed from the tradition of the Mediterranean. So if that is the concept, then I have to check with the Mediterranean and check which could have inspired. So I've got one example here. The first example, the tomb of Vedās in Gordion in Turkey. So this dates to 8th century BCE. When I say 8th century BCE, this could be around 300 years, even older than the Barabar caves, which is our first example of architecture. So this is much older than that. So you see, so you find, I'll show you this picture. So you find trees on either sides. There is a causeway which is leading you to the entrance of the mountain. And this is a stupa. So it's a tomb. They didn't call it a stupa, it was a tomb. Now I want to show you another tomb, which is of the royal funeral tumulus. It's a royal funeral tumulus of the king Aliatus, and it's in Lydia. It belongs to the 6th century BCE. So 8th century BC and 6th century BC tombs. So people who have worked on those tombs, either they could have moved in tribes or their descendants could have moved in tribes and come to India. And the concept of stupa must have been or could have been borrowed from this Mediterranean culture. Now in Pali, a stupa is called a tube or tupe. It's a mound-like structure that contains the relics, the remains of Buddha or Buddhist monks. And it will generally have, most stupas have a chaitya. So I spoke about vihara, chaitya is a prayer hall. And stupas have a pradakshina path. So to go around the stupa, because pradakshina, in Sanskrit, dakshina means the right. Pradakshina, even in Hindu temples, you go around the sanctum sanctorum by keeping your right hand side of the body towards the sanctum sanctorum. Since the dakshina part is closer to the sanctum, this process of going around is called pradakshina. So the stupas have a pradakshina path around them. Around the stupa, the guard rails are erected. Now, you can find those rails. Can you see? I'll show you this picture of a stupa. Now you can find this is the entrance. So the entrance is so beautifully, it's like there is a circle from the top. If you look, it's like a circle, and then from the circle you're going to slice a portion and keep it outside, so that for a person who's coming from far, he wouldn't know which is the entrance, because from the far it will look like one patch of railing. When you come close is where you find apertures or openings on either sides. So you get in through this and then go around the stupa. That's the pradakshina path. And the guardrails are erected. You can find them now. Now after parinirvana of Buddha, the relics of Buddha were spread in 8 stupas. We have a verse that supports it. So it's Rajagriha, Vaishali, Kapilavastu, Allakappa, Ramagrama, Pava, Kushinagara and Vetapida. So then later when relics of Piprahva, we discussed Piprahva was found, when Piprahva was found, then probably that was also added, because that very clearly stated Buddha's relics was also here. So from the time of Ashoka, now we have I'm not dealing with Ashoka's life. I did mention that Kalinga was not occupied by the Mauryas for a very long time, because Ashoka then waged a war, who came in the same clan. He waged a war and he won over Kalinga, and that is when we hear that Ashoka was a lot depressed and then took up to Buddhism to seek solace or peace. So from the time of Ashoka, we have had the concept of stupas coming up. So they are independent structures. So now we are moving from rock cut architecture to independent structures. Now the first one is the Bharhut Stupa. Now this is located in the Satna district of Madhya Pradesh. It is attributed between the 1st and the 2nd century BCE. Though it is said to have begun by Ashoka, it is said, yes, it was begun by Ashoka, it was continued by Vatsiputra Dhanabhuti. Now this Vatsiputra Dhanabhuti is a person whom researchers say could have been the feudatory of the Shunga Empire, because when I talk about 1st and 2nd century BC, then we see the decline of Mauryas and the rise of Shungas. So under them, there could have been a feudatory who was called Vatsiputra Dhanabhuti, who has constructed this. Now there are many monks found in Kharoshthi. So a script used now, when we look at this particular Bharhut Stupa, we find Kharoshthi as a script which is used. What is Kharoshthi? We have dealt with Brahmi, Tamil Brahmi and all that. Now here this is Kharoshthi. What is Kharoshthi? Kharoshthi was a script that was used to write Prakrit and Sanskrit, not largely in the Indian subcontinent, but in a certain portion which was from the Gandhara region. Gandhara is largely Afghanistan, the upper part of Afghanistan and Pakistan. So there alone we had this Kharoshthi, and Kharoshthi was used for inscriptions and for marks in this particular Bharhut Stupa, which indicates that the artisans or the masons who constructed this particular piece in the Bharhut Stupa could have been from Gandhara, which were used as gateways for the locals to do. Now these are found only in the entrances, the Toranam, whereas in the railings you don't have this Kharoshthi, which means that the local artisans were used for that. The artisans who came from Kharoshthi, from Gandhara region, were used for the large panels or the entrances or the gateways, because Kharoshthi is found only in them. So this indicates that the artisans who came from the Gandhara region were aware of the Greek and the Mediterranean region. Now I'm going to take you to this depiction. This is not a depiction, this is found in the museum. This is the entrance, the gateway to the Bharhut Stupa. Can you see that? It's beautiful. Now we are going to see what is there, what could the railings look like. So you can see the close-up of the railing. So if you look at the top, you find animals which are depicted, and then when you look like columns, you've got a person seated on a horse and he's meeting up with another person on the other side of the horse. How artistic. And you, between the two columns, you find circles again, which again carry beautiful depictions of lotus and the elephant. Okay. Now, these stupas had a common idea or ideology to convey Buddha, his life, and the incidents in his life. Now, can you see two images that I've put on your screen? One on the left, one on the right. Now, on the right, this is from Sanchi, the left is from Bharhut. So, both of these have an elephant at the top. Of course, the Sanchi one has an elephant facing us, because it's more 3D in effect, whereas the one on the left is more 2D. So we have an elephant coming from the top. You find a lady sleeping, right? In both this, you find a lady sleeping. And if you look at his stomach, especially in the Sanchi one, you find that the stomach looks a lot bloated, because she is carrying. Who is she? She is believed to be the mother of Gautama Buddha, who had a dream that a white elephant was entering her body. So this was her dream. So later it was said that it was Gautama who was born as a result. So what it means is she is seeing something very auspicious. So if you look at the left, you find a lady having a shauri, the chamaram, There is one lady with a water pot, and there is an incense burner. If you can see, yes, there is an incense burner. So this incense burner, all this shows the amount of details that would have gone into the building of the stupa. Now, there is another concept in Buddhism that there is a descent of Buddha from heaven onto earth by a ladder, attended by Brahma and Indra. So you can find this depiction on in Bharhut as well as in Sanchi. Can you see that those railings are the ladder? So what you see is a ladder, a depiction of the ladder. So this Bharhut stupa is a beautiful depiction of how a stupa is to be constructed. Then I'm going to show you two more stupas. Now there is an Amaravati stupa in the Guntur district, so of Andhra Pradesh, which was constructed in stages. So we have already seen Guntupalli, where Barabar caves was repeated. So we find another place in Andhra, which is Amaravati stupa in Guntur district, where the stupa concept was repeated between the 200 and the 250, 250 BCE, 200 BCE and 250 CE. Now, let's go to the next picture. Okay, now what you see looks like a mountain. It's actually a stupa, the remains of a stupa. Now this is a Dharmarajika stupa in Takshila or Takshashila, which is in the current day Pakistan. So you must look at the state. It is dated between the 2nd century BCE and 2nd century CE. So this is what we find for the stupa style of architecture way in Takshashila, because yes, when I'm talking about Takshashila, we have already spoken about Kharoshthi as a script used, and Gandhara was the opening. So there would have been a stupa there too. But this site was reduced to ruins when the Hephthalites, they were a tribal confederation from Central Asia who were also called white nuns, who invaded this particular place. So this stupa is not in a usable condition, not that safe to visit as well. But what you see is that. Now, we have discussed Bharhut, we have just known about Amaravati stupa and Dharmarajika stupa. Now, we are going to see one of the best stupas of all time, which is often treated as the representation of Buddhist architecture, which is the Sanchi stupa. It is one of India's oldest stone structures. Now, I'm going to show you a picture of the Sanchi stupa. Look at that gateway. It's beautiful. Now, the original stupa was commissioned by Ashoka in the 3rd century BCE, and the original stupa was further expanded. Thank God the Shungas who succeeded the Mauryas, they did not damage the stupa, they expanded the stupa to twice its diameter. So a pillar of 42 feet height was discovered with this emblem at its top. Here is the remains of the pillar. So you can see the remains of the pillar. It looks as if a coconut tree or a palm tree is sliced. So it was that tall a pillar, 42 feet. And it is said that in the 2nd century BC, the stupa could have been vandalized by the Shungas. Though they wanted to show their skills in architecture, they could have also done this. This is a theory again. Now, after the Mauryas and the Shungas, it was the time of the Satavahanas who did the embellishment. Okay. Now, I'm going to show you what would have been atop the pillar. So we have seen this. Let's see this. This must remind you of something. Yes, it is the emblem of India. It's the national emblem. So it's our emblem. So this is found in other pillars as well in Saranath. But what we see is a depiction from the museum. So we have 3 lines that you can see from your end, from my end too. And the 4th line will be at its back. So this was very, very famous, and this is still famous because that's our emblem. Now this looks very damaged. Many such emblems are damaged. I'm not keeping a clean picture because for us to get an idea of how much damage we have incurred in our architecture and history as well. Now look at the mains of the line, how beautifully they have been done. And then this particular patch below where the elephants, lions are standing is where there is a Dhamma Chakra which comes in Saranath. And there is an inverted lotus below that. Now, okay, now I'm going to tell you about how a city would have looked. So this is a picture. This is an example of an ornate gateway in the Torana style. This Torana style is very important because when we deal with the 11th, 12th and 13th centuries of Kakatiya dynasty, Torana architecture was again brought back into style. So this Kushinagara Mallas wanted to keep, so after the death of Buddha, the Kushinagara Mallas wanted to keep his ashes, but other kingdoms, they besieged the city and wanted their share. So it was divided among the 8 kingdoms. So Buddha's relics were there. One king wanted to hold it entirely. Then there was a fight that broke, and then it was distributed. So how it was distributed amongst the kingdoms is what is being depicted in this beautiful Torana. So there is a war somewhere, there is peace somewhere, there is distribution somewhere. So it was a grand city, how this city looked. Now, another beautiful find often cited by the historians and the archaeologists is the Didarganj Yakshi. This Didarganj Yakshi is super famous. She's in a museum. Now I'm going to show you this particular image. So there is a front and a back. I hope you can see the front. Look at her face. Look at the frontal way of tying your hair. Some say it is different hair. It's a beautiful ornament that extends till the forehead for women. Some say it is hair itself. Look at the little tiara and the way it has been designed. Now, how does her back look? When I say back, how does the back of her head look? So what she has bundled is like a hair clip behind. And then you've got short hair. Either it could have been short, or she could have just bundled it in a certain way and then put the cloth over to give us a feel that it looks like short hair. Now from the back, she looks very natural, backless. Let's go to the front. She isn't wearing anything to cover her bosoms. Now look at her abdomen. They've got 2 beautiful layers. You can see those layers, and below that it's a low waist a dress that she's wearing. It looks like something, we call it ready-made today. It looks so beautiful. Look at the curves that come, and look at the ornament that she's wearing around her hip. So it's again a step chain process. When we dealt with Indus Valley, it was restricted to the neck. Now it has come down to the abdomen. And you should find a projection. It could be a snake, or it could be the head of a sword with a scabbard that you can find between her feet. And she is wearing a beautiful thick anklet as well. Now what is she holding? Let me show a clear picture of Digarganj Yakshi. So she's sporting a chamaram. She's sporting a fly whisk. Now this is extremely beautiful, and this is so very well polished. How did they polish it so well? It is said that they were influenced by the Greeks. Influenced by the Greeks, the Mauryans developed this polish, and from then on this was called the Mauryan polish. Look at the shine. Now I'm going to show you this image of Digarganj Yakshi is done. And now I'm going to show you how Pataliputra was described by Megasthenes in the 3rd century BC, where he tells that the city of Pataliputra had 564 towers and 64 gates in the city walls. So there were city walls and there were 64 gates. So now when we have to finally wrap up whatever little architecture we have seen of this period of the Mauryas, the Shungas and the Satavahanas, we have to conclude it with Bodh Gaya. So Bodh Gaya is the fulcrum of Buddhist tourism, spiritual tourism, because that's where Buddha was enlightened. So it is believed he sat under meditation of a sacred fig, which is Ficus religiosa, the binomial nomenclature. So he sat under that tree, and Ashoka is said to have constructed a diamond throne in that place, which was believed to be where Buddha sat under the tree. So Ashoka constructed after a very long period. After Ashoka's time, we didn't have trace to that diamond throne at all until an excavation was made and the throne is found. So you find a black and white image. It's broken in many places. This is the diamond throne. How do we know this is the diamond throne? Because though we couldn't find the diamond throne, this diamond throne was very well known as the place where Ashoka had built to commemorate the enlightenment of Buddha under the shade of the tree. Now, this diamond throne has been represented in various paintings which predate our finding of the diamond throne. So, this diamond throne is a find. It's a beautiful find.
సగరి ని ప మ గరి మ ప స ని ప మ గరి స ని ప మ గరి ప ని స ప ని స రి మ ప ని రి మ ప ని ప మ గరి స గరి మ ప ని స.
Namaskaram, dear Sishyas of Bhāratiya Sāra Bodhani Level 1, Batch 1. I will be more than happy to be speaking to you all live on the 24th of October at 3 p.m. IST. Sishyas who are based in India, it is 3 p.m. Sishyas who are in the Far East from Australia, New Zealand, Japan, Singapore, Malaysia, as well as Sishyas in the Middle East and in the European continent and UK can adjust to these timings of 3 p.m. IST. I am also aware that this may not be suitable for Sishyas in the US because it may be night for you all. So you can all watch the video after the live presentation on the YouTube channel. Those of you who can, I would urge all of you to kindly watch my Thanksgiving to all the Sishyas of Batch 1 on the 24th of October in my YouTube channel, Dushyanth Sridhar. Alongside Sishyas who have registered for Bhāratiya Sāra Bodhani Level 1 Batch 2, which will be commencing on October 25th, I will also be sharing a welcome message along with this video on the 24th of October at 3 p.m. IST. Kindly tune in to my YouTube channel and please do join us. Namaskaram.